So we said in database day 1 people. Just a moment. There we go. So it was day 0, 2 people. Yeah, that's fine. And we said to add new table passports. Let's do that. So let's do passports, ID, passport number, and photo file path. That's the interesting one, right? Passport number was at 820. Okay, fine. So varchar. Yeah, let's say 20. And photo file path was 200. And then we said this one was auto increment. Passport was unique, I believe. Yeah, they were unique. Unique, yes. And photo was also unique as a separate index and also nullable, right? Because it may or may not be there. Okay. That should.
Varchar.
Excuse me?
Varchar for photo.
Varchar, thank you. Yes, you're right. Absolutely. In varchar 2100. Yeah, we're okay now. Yeah, should be fine. All right, good. And then we said create add passport PHP. Let's talk about that solution. So we said add passport PHP, and we'll put it into day 1 first. I still have it. I thought that's day 2. Oh yeah, the database. We'll rename the database, but not the folder. Right. That's okay. So that would be, let's just do 9. And let's take a look at this. So I'll support myself here with my notes a little bit. So let's do that. And yeah. All right. So here's the basic form. Yeah, I need to close PHP. Where would that be? Right here. So here's the basic form, as I said, right? We open PHP. That's fine. Connect to the database, right? We have the required DB, which connects us to day 2 people, right? No problem there. I'm actually going to close others. Yeah, let's do that. And the form, all right, so the form is almost the same as before, but there is a catch, and there's a very important catch. You need to add enctype. Excuse me, just a moment. Enctype is required. Without it, you won't be able to upload the file. And the result is you seem to be, if you don't put it in, it seems like you're receiving the form, you're receiving all the values from it. So in this case, there is a passport number, right? But somehow you're not receiving the file. And that's the reason that you forgot to put the enctype. It has to be multi-part form data. Right? It's just the standard submission, the way the data is represented behind the scenes is meant for text, right? Textual inputs that user makes. But if we're uploading a file that's binary data, that has to be handled differently. That's why you need to tell the web browser to, well, handle the binary data differently on submission. Okay, then we have passport number, right? Regular input. Yes, we will redisplay the value on failed submission if appropriate. Then there is the input type file, which I'm going to name photo just because, and the submission box, submission button, right? That's pretty much it. Nothing fancy here. Now, the interesting part Let's actually. Yeah, I'm going to borrow that. I actually think this code is untested, the one I have. I have a suspicion as to whether this actually will work or not. I'm not sure we tested that last time with the previous group. I think what I'm thinking is we had a solution and then which worked, right? And then I started improving it, and I'm not certain if we actually tested the improved solution. So we'll see. All right, so this is I'm betting this is way more fancy than anything you guys did yesterday, right? Yeah, that's okay. I'll explain. Let's look at it here first. This is a function that verifies whether the uploaded photo is okay or not. Now, again, we'll test if this actually works or not. If not, I do have another version, which I believe does work, but this one is nicer. So what do I have here? Do I really like this one? That's okay. So we've got, yeah, we're checking, are we receiving a submission? If we're not receiving a submission, then display the form, right, empty, usual, right? If we are receiving the submission, then extract passport number, right? And then, of course, verify it, right? So we have the, just like before, the error list. There's a verification. I'm assuming Canadian passport, so 2 uppercase letters, 6 digits, right? If they don't match, then we add to the error list, which is, yeah, better written as this. Yeah, it looks better. The error message, and then this is where the interesting part happens. So we've got the photo file path. Oh yeah, so this is gonna, that's a variable. All right, so here's a fancy thing. This is a variable that will be used, let's just look at it. When submission is successful, we'll end up doing insert into passport values, null, that's the ID, right? Then we have the passport number, and then we have a path to a photo. Now, the way this works is that we're going to have a directory. It's called uploads. Let me just double check here. We did uploads, exactly. So I need to create here directory uploads. There we go. Right. So what's going to happen is that this parameter is a path to the binary file. Now there are, when you're uploading a file, there's essentially 2 things you're going to do with it usually. One is you're going to save it as a file on the hard drive on the server side. So from the client, you're copying the file or transferring the file contents onto the server side, and you write it in another file on the server side. And that's the easiest solution. That's what we usually do almost all the time. The second solution, which we're not doing here, is to save it in a database as a blob. You guys remember blobs? I know we played with it before, right? The binary large objects, right? So you write it to a database. That one's not harder exactly, just different. We do not do that unless we have a good reason, especially on the web. Usually we don't have a good reason. So unless you're writing some, financial application or some system where the data is absolutely confidential and nobody can access that file except after logging in, right? So if you want to limit the access to only somebody who's logged in, authenticated, and so on, then yes, you might want to put it into a database as a blob field, a large blob usually. If not, which usually is what we do in web applications, you just save it to a folder that can then, so that the file can then be served and accessed by a web browser. So in here, I'm going to have a directory uploads, which will be visible from a web browser. I'll be able to go to, let's just take a look at this, local host. We had day 0 first uploads. You see, I can actually get in here. I mean, it's empty right now. That's true. true, right? But when I have files here, I can, just type, cat1.jpg, and if the cat is there, the file cat1 is there, I'll see it. Right, I'll be able to view it. So that's the usual way. That is what we do most of the time, which is exactly what we're trying to do here. So at the end of it, right, if the submission is successful, I will insert the record into database saying, well, this is the path to the file. Now, in this particular case, we also want to allow null, right? So you got to be careful here. What you want to do is you want to make sure that that the engine actually understands what it is that you're doing, right? You see, there's no quotes around this one, okay? Because your query to insert a null, let's just do this one. So if I all right, and here I have, if I have a path, the path has to have quotes. So it's going to be uploads cat1 JPEG, something like this, right? That's my query. But if I have a null, I can't do this. If I do this, what did I just do? I created a value with null in it. Null being a string, varchar, right? It's content, right? So my unique index will prevent me from putting more than one of those in the database. But if I drop the single quotes, now that's a null. So you gotta be careful here, right? That's why there's this whole thing here with either, you see, there's no quotes around this, and then either it's a null or we are escaping the path and putting a single quotes around it. Okay, one of those two. So then I execute the query. If it went okay, that's good. And then I need to move the file. Right, what do you mean I need to move the file? Well, you see, when the PHP script begins executing, which is right up here, right, the first line, the file has already been received in full from the client, meaning the client has already uploaded the entire file, and the file is not kept in memory because it's inefficient. The file has been saved to the hard drive. Where? In a temporary location, right? Under a temporary file name. Somewhere, PHP was configured to save those files somewhere into some temporary directory under some temporary name. And what we need to do, we need to move it from that location, right, to whatever location we desire. Where do we desire to put it? Right here, right, into uploads under name cat1 JPEG, right? So whatever is this path, that's the destination for the file being moved. Oh yeah, and I haven't mentioned yet, files super global, right, is how you access the file that you uploaded, or rather the information about it. The file super global, let's actually look inside if we can. If not, we'll just do our own example, but let's see if they can tell us what's inside there. There we go. All right. So here is an example of what we're going to get. This is print R. Do you guys remember I used print R? You maybe missed that one. Print R is your primary debugging tool. If you want to look inside of a variable or an object or an array, say, hey, tell me what's inside, right? Print R. R stands for what? Pirate? No, recursive. It means recursively print everything inside. So here, somebody printed the contents of files, this one, right? Somebody printed that. So this was the name of the file they were uploading in the form. So they said, so here we had photo, right? So they called it, so photo, they called file 1, file 2. So they're actually uploading 2 files at a time. You could do that. We are not going to do that, but you could, right? And then inside of this element of the main array, the associative array files, there is the value, right, of this item is another array with those fields or keys rather, right? There is the name. The name is the original name that came from the web browser, and they actually say treat as tainted, meaning what? Do not trust it. For example, this name could include potentially 2 dots. 2 dots means go one directory up, higher, higher, higher. You have to sanitize. If you're going to use that name, you must sanitize it. You must disallow double dots. So dot, for example, you have to disallow that, among other things potentially, right? So yes, you could use that as the basis for naming your file. You could, but you need to sanitize it. Okay, or you need to generate your own file name. That's also another option. You could do that too. Then what? Type of the file. This one comes from the web browser again. So it's whatever the web browser thinks it is. So the web browser thinks it's a PDF, JPEG, GIF, BMP, PNG, TXT, HTML. It's what web browser thinks it is. It's usually based on the extension of the file. Again, we should exercise limited trust to that value. I generally don't care what it says here. I don't discard it. I just ignore it. I've tested on my own, but just, you could use it. Just be aware. You shouldn't trust it 100%. Right. Then we have the temporary name. All right, look at this. So this would be on a Unix system. On a Unix system, there's a directory called tmp or /tmp, which is kind of like the root of the entire file system. You see, on Unix systems, we don't have C drive, D drive, and so on. There is no drive letters. Everything is under one tree of directories. So there is a directory tmp, which is temporary directory, inside of which they apparently created directory php, inside of which here is a randomly created file name, right, where the content uploaded was saved. This will be deleted the moment when your PHP script ends. If you move it to a different location, it will stay there in the new location. But if you don't move it, it gets deleted when your PHP script ends. Why? Because we don't want to clutter the file system. Finally, we have an error code. If this is 0, means 2 thumbs up, all is good, right? If the error is 0, which fits the constant upload error, okay, meaning there was no error, right? If it's not a 0, means there was a problem. Maybe there is no file being uploaded. Maybe there is some other stuff going on. Maybe the file was too big or couldn't be read or whatever, right? But if it's a 0, then we're okay. And then size in bytes, which is usually known. So how big is the file? In bytes, right? Because why do we care? Well, because sometimes you have a limit. You say, yes, I'll let you upload your avatar to the system, but only up to 200 kilobytes, right? It's very reasonable to have an upload limit on the size of the file, right? So we may need to, do quite a few things here with those values. So let's take a look. And as I said, I don't think I verified whether this actually works, so we'll see. All right, so this is an interesting one. How did this ampersand get here? Good question. And I know you guys hate me asking this question, but do you remember the out parameters? All right, so in .NET we had try parse. What does that have to do with PHP, Gregory? Okay, I'll explain, just hang in there. All right, so try parse right here. And there was an out parameter. You see this one? Right, so when we're parsing, right, whatever try parse assigned to result, the result would change because it was not passed by value, it was passed by reference. We were actually passing a reference to whatever was the variable being passed over here so that it could be modified. Normally, when you're passing a value to a method, the value itself can't be really modified unless it's a reference, right? If it's an integer or something, it can't be modified. But in this case, we're putting an ampersand in front, meaning the value can be modified, meaning that whatever I write to photo file path will be modifying, well, what I have here, photo file path. You see what I call it over here? Oh, I should have given it a different name. I just realizing, but Yeah, no, let's not mess with it. It's fine. We'll just keep it as is, right? But it's going to get assigned. Where was it? Right here, right? This is like, if I wrote this, would be clearer, right? Could I have said out here or out? Apparently, some Canadians say it like this, according to Americans anyway. So out photo file path, right? So that would allow photo file path to be modified by the call to this function. Now in PHP, we don't actually put the out over here. Rather, you can actually put an ampersand in front, and that makes it a reference to the variable that you're passing. So you can modify it. All right, so that's one thing. Now let's check what else we've got. If is set files of photo, meaning what? A submission of photo is being received. So I'm actually testing it. I'm checking whether this thing actually is there. If it's not, means I am not receiving a submission. Right? I'm just making sure that I actually have it. And second, I'm testing is the error not a 4. Okay, now we're gonna have to test this one. Why is that a 4? Frankly, I don't remember off of the top of my head. Yeah, we'll see. All right, so then what? Then okay, so I extract the photo to a variable photo just because it's easier to access, right? And then I check. Oh, okay, so I'm checking if it's not a 4. Okay, and then I actually check again if it's anything else than a 0. I don't know why I'm checking it twice. I'm sure I had a reason to check it twice. So I'm checking if it's not a 0, then there was an error. Exactly. Oh yeah, so this function, look at the description here, returns true, Boolean true on success, and returns a string with an error message on failure. That's a nice design, not bad. So you see there is a return value, right? If it is anything else but true, I should actually do this. Triple comparison, right? If it's anything else but true, that means it's a string and I should add it to the list of errors. Okay, let's go back here. So we've got, right, so I'm checking if the error is anything else than a 0. 0 means upload succeeded, right? Then I check the size of the photo. Being what? How big is the file size? So here I have a limit 1 megabytes maximum. Right? Then what? This is an interesting one. The name of this function is, again, like I mentioned in PHP, sometimes there are functions, or maybe I haven't mentioned this one yet. There are certain functions in PHP that are named in a way that is less than clear. They are just, PHP evolved over time. They added functionality, improved it, and so on. But sometimes the idea behind a function that was there, whatever, 20 years ago, today it changed, but the name stayed the same. So that's one of those. So here is a function called get image size. And what it actually does, it returns a bunch of information. It actually returns not just the size, but also some other information. In particular, it returns information about the MIME type. What's MIME type? You mean like MIME? No, not quite. That's a different MIME. So MIME type is a textual description that has the major part and minor part that tells us about the type of the content. You can think about it as pretty much the same thing as the file extension. So for example, if I have a file with extension JPEG or JPEG, the contents needs to be image, that's definitely an image, type JPEG, right? So the major is image, minor is JPEG. It's just, you see, the extensions can vary. Sometimes some formats have multiple extensions, but the image types are actually defined strictly. Okay. So what I'm checking is I'm doing an interesting thing. You see, think about it this way. What if somebody uploads a BMP, like bitmap file, but they actually rename it? Or think about it, even different scenario. Somebody has a PDF and they change the extension of PDF to be GIF, and then they upload it. What's going to happen with this code, because this code is good, I hope, is that the get image size will actually look at it will open the file, it will read the header of the file, and will try to determine, is it JPEG, GIF, PNG, BMP, right? And then it will try to determine what is the width and height of the image, right? What is the type really? It will not pay attention to the extension. You see the TMP name, we already know that doesn't have an extension, right? TMP name looks kind of like this, no extension here, it's just a file. So what I'm saying, what I'm doing here is I'm calling get image size to figure out the size of the image, not the kilobytes, but rather the width and height, because I may have a limitation on that. And also what kind of an image is it exactly? Right, and that's going to come to me in, you see, info is an associative array. There's going to be info mime, right, which will tell me, is it a JPEG, a GIF, a PNG, and then I can decide what kind of extension this file should have. So I'm ignoring completely the extension that came with the name. This one, I won't be paying attention to it. I'm creating my own extension based on what? Of the actual type of the image. I'm verifying, is it really a JPEG, GIF, whatever, right? And I'm going to give it an extension that's appropriate for that. Okay. All right. And if it isn't one of those, then I'll return an error. Only JPEG, GIF, PNG types are file types are allowed. Okay. And finally, okay, so I'm doing something here that's a little bit different than your homework, I think. Let's just check that, or maybe not. File names, no, actually I did that. The file names will be constructed of passport number, and the extension will match the file type uploaded. So for example, if I had AB1234567.8.jpg, right, that would be a valid file name for an uploaded file, right? Regardless what the file was called on my hard drive on the client. Okay, let's see how that works out. Let's see. This looks actually okay. This actually looks all right. Oh yeah, I just wanted to show you if I can get good documentation on this guy. Let's see if I can find an example of the return values. It's usually somebody nice would put a comment. No. All right, there you go. So here is the output. So there is element 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So 0 tells us the width. Element 1 gives us the height, apparently. I'm not sure what this one is. And then there's some textual description. And then there is an element mime. So you see how inconsistent it is? This is a natural array where the elements go 0, 1, 2, 3, right? And then suddenly we have a key, instead of being 4, we have a key mime, inconsistent, right? These should have been, instead of being 0, 1, 2, 3, this should have been, width, height. This is probably bits per pixel. I suspect that this is probably BPF, bits per pixel, right? So they should have names, not numbers, right? And then they actually say, you know what? We think it's better to just name it, so we're going to call it mime. Thank you. Finally, right? This is way more descriptive. So as I said, you can expect from PHP certain level of inconsistencies, unfortunately, because, well, it was developed by actually one guy 20 years ago, and then it just turned out to be a great thing. And, people started improving it. All right, so that's that. I'm really curious if that actually works or not. So let's test it. So let's go to, I may have to, oh yeah, because I reinstalled this machine. All right, so let's go to 9 aunt passport, see what happens. Okay, so it seems okay. So let's say this cat will have a password Oh, hold on, actually, wrong submission. What if I do? Let's try one without a file, right? So add passport, passport successfully added. Well, let's see. I got my passport or no. There you go. You see, I got AB 1, 2, 3, 3, null. You see, null is grayed out, right? It's not a NULL string, right? But it's actually a null value. You see, it's italic, it's slanted, right? That tells me that this is an actual null value. Let's add one more, just to make sure. There you go. See, if I can add 2 of those and I have a unique index on this, then I know I'm okay. Okay, so that's the not so interesting part. Now let's go to the exciting part. So let's do, yeah, let's add some cats there. So let's go download and, oh, the cat bigger turned out to be really tiny, actually, only 180K. You know what? So what I'll do, I'll just change the limit there. All right, so cat one was tiny, like 50 kilobytes. That's okay. Add passport. Okay, so now that's it. Move file to OpenStream, no such file or directory in line 91. Yep, so I got a problem there.